There you go. That's what I'm saying.
All
right, Matthew chapter 20.
I forgot what my Bible was.
We're just going to go through the whole thing, aren't we?
Huh?
Huh?
What?
Yes.
That's the plan. So we're almost through Matthew. Kind of, sort of.
I was literally
Kind of, sort of, not really.
We still got 8 left. 8 chapters. A couple of them can be broken into a couple different lessons. So we're still looking at a good minute through Matthew. All right. So the beginning of this chapter is a continuation of what he said in the end of chapter 19. Okay? So he said, those who will first will be last, and those who are last will be first. This is an expansion on that. Okay?
What kind of Bible do you have?
This one's an NIV, I believe. No, this is an English Standard.
No, it's not. That's why.
No, it's not.
What do you have?
Mine have different words.
That's what happens.
But I know what you're saying.
I thought yours was English Standard, but
some of the chapters have different wording than yours.
Okay, pal.
Berkeley, that's crazy. Shut up.
I'm going to need y'all to not today. Y'all are violent. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to read through this first section, and then we'll break it down, okay? It said, for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers from his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard, and going out about the 3rd hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And to them he said, you go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give you. So they went. Going out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour, he did the same. And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing. And he said to them, why do you stand here idle all day? And they said to him, because no one has hired us. He said to them, because no one has hired you go into the vineyard too. And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first. And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Now when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, the last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat. But he replied to one of them, friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to the last worker as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity? So the last will be first and the first will be last. Long story, okay, but it paints it. So the man goes out, he grabs some workers. They agree, we'll say a denarius, that's a day's wage, is what he's talking about. This is an average day's wage. So we'll say, I'll give you $50. You come out, work in my vineyard for the day, I'll give you $50. Cool. They agree to it. While they go work, he goes out a couple hours later and grabs a couple more. He doesn't tell them what he's going to pay them. Note that. He doesn't say anything about what he's going to pay them. He says, you come work in my vineyard and I'll pay you what's right. So they come and work. And he does that again and again over the next couple hours up until there's only an hour left of daylight, and he grabs someone else. They ask, why aren't you working right now? And he says, because nobody hired me. So you go work and I'll pay you what's right. So after the day ends, he tells his servant or his foreman, which is someone who looks over the job site, he says, go get them, bring them to me, round them up. So he wants the last first, the last people hired. Dude only worked an hour. He was pulled at 7 o'clock in the afternoon. And he says, here's $50. So on and so forth through all of them. But the men at the back, who were there first and were there all day are like, all right, well, he's paying them $50. We've been here all day. Surely he'll give us a little more, expecting of the work that they put in to be paid out. But they agreed on $50. So they get there and he gives them $50. There you go. There's your honest day. Thought, we were here all day. We worked in the yet we get $50. And they got $50. And they didn't put in half the work. He says, why do you begrudge my generosity? Like, I chose to be generous to these people who wouldn't have otherwise had it, didn't have work. You were just so lucky that I caught you at the beginning of the day, and you had a full job to work. He's giving that generosity. So look at this, at how God looks at us, okay? So we have people that get saved daily. Hopefully. I pray they do. We have people that get saved daily. Let me back up. You can be someone who comes to church every single day that you're supposed to be here, or every day, period. You could say the prayer, sing the song, do whatever. You're saved. But you are still equal to the person that would pray and be received on their deathbed. Didn't know God a day in their life until the day they are dying. But they can ask God into their heart and receive it and still end up in the same place you're ending up. Because that's God's grace. That's what he told us about the entire time. We are equals. Through a lot of this gospel, he talks about our equality. We're all children of God. Children of God. This is his generosity. Okay? So, all right. So, we have to keep from being, what's the word I'm looking for? Envious of others. They can still have the same faith. We should be grateful for the grace that we're given. We don't have to worry about what else someone else is getting. We don't have to worry about that. God's grace is given equally to all his people. You could be a terrible person and ask God into your heart and still be able to make it to heaven if you truly receive him. Like the big deal that I figure y'all probably know a lot about is the whole Jeffrey Dahmer thing. He was a murderer.
Yes.
But it was written that he received the Lord before he passed away.
Oh, right.
If he truly received the Lord, he will be in heaven.
Doesn't matter what you do or what your past is.
There is not a sin above another. You could be a murderer, you could be an adulterer, you could be a liar, you could be envious, you could be prideful, you could be literally anything, a glutton, whatever. You can be anything. And there is no sin greater than another. They're all measured the same. But it all falls down to the grace. If you repent and you can find God into your heart. We good here?
Yeah, I don't know what she's doing.
Okay. If you can ask God into your heart and be repentant of whatever sin you've done, you can be forgiven if you have Jesus. This is another thing of why God's grace is important. And this is the laborers of the vineyard that he's talking about here is the perspective of God to us. We can't expect because we received God first. And we've been doing the song and dance, and we've been in the word, and we go to church, and we hear the songs, we sing the songs, we're living how God is asking us to live. Just because we live how God asks us to live longer than somebody else might have doesn't mean we're going to get a speckled throne when we get to heaven and have a higher standing. We're going to get into that in a minute. The greater standings or the honors in heaven will be given to the least of these. as it says. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next spot, which is fairly simple. It says, Jesus foretells his death for a third time. Okay? So, and Jesus was going up to Jerusalem. He took the 12 disciples aside, and on the way he said to them, "See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death and deliver him over to the Gentiles to be mocked, flogged, and crucified. And he will be raised on a third day." So let's talk about this crucifixion deal, because we're going to get into it in a minute. The brutality of the crucifixion was such as this. So not only was he to be mocked, but he would be stoned, and he said he would be flogged. Does anybody know what flogging is? So I forget the name of the tool, but the tool, they would tie you to a post so much that your back would be as stretched as it could possibly be. As taut as your skin can get. So like full wingspan, stretch out forward, as far forward as you can reach your arms. That tension you feel on the skin on your back. Think of that, but tighter. Okay? He would tie them to a post, and they had a tool that was a handle that had leather straps that came down it. And it was littered with glass and lead, sharpened.
Cat of nine tails.
Kind of. It had another name. But they would lay it across your back and rip it across you. This was Roman culture, that they would do this softer and softer as you confessed your crimes to Rome.
I thought they were like wood.
They do. This is just how the research I had.
Okay.
It would be laid, whipped across your back. But it would get lighter and lighter as you confessed your crimes to Rome. Or if you continued to stay silent, which a man who had done nothing wrong would do, it would get worse and worse. So the whole time that Jesus is strapped to this pole before carrying his cross up Calvary, he is being whipped and torn to shreds by a lash that would rip his skin open. All the while, he's being stoned by the Gentiles. So that's just part of it. Not only that, it was said that, like 350 pounds, something like that, was the weight of the cross. If I remember from what I researched correctly, it was like 350, 375 that he would carry for well over a mile.
It's like 5 of them.
So he's been beaten, he's been torn to shreds, he's been mocked publicly, basically all but stripped naked. And now he has to carry a 375-pound cross uphill for a mile, a little over a mile. Brutality, okay? But he tells of this. He says, this will happen. And he says, I will come back on the third day. That's another prediction. The third time it says it's written here. The third time he makes this prediction. So then, the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Can anyone tell me who the sons of Zebedee are?
I have the names. I just can't remember who they are. I know who they are.
That will be James and John. Okay? So when he's talking about the sons of Zebedee, that's who he's talking about here. He's talking about James, and he's talking about John. It said the sons of Zebedee came up to him with, the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to her with her sons. So James and John are in here with them. It says, and kneeling before him, asked him for something. And he said to her, what do you want? She said to him, say that these 2 sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom. Jesus answered, you do not know what you are asking. are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink? So right here, he's asking the men. He's asking James and John. He said, are you able to suffer as I am about to suffer? Because at this point, the disciples still don't fully comprehend the brutality that Jesus is about to go through. They don't comprehend it yet. But he asked them, he said, are you able to drink from the cup I'm about to drink from? You don't know what you're asking. And they said to him, we are able. And he said to them, you will drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and at my left hand is not mine to grant, but it is for these whom it has been prepared by my Father. So he is foretelling their death. He said, you will drink from my cup. He didn't say, okay, you can. He said, you will. Does anyone know how James died? He suffered at the hands of King Herod to be decapitated, beaten, and flogged. Put to execution by King Herod. Can anyone tell me how John died?
Like the exact same way, basically. Pretty much the same way.
No.
Because
I don't believe John is dead. But anyways, it said he died of old age. Is what it's where he would eventually, how they wrote it, where he would eventually die in, I forget the city, but not before going through years and years and years of mental torture, physical torture, being trying to be boiled in oil and locked on the island of Patmos in isolation-ish. He was a prison island, but in isolation for centuries, not just years, for centuries, where he would inevitably write or get a vision and write the book of Revelation before King Herod is to die, and he would go back to the ministry he was on, where he would eventually die of old age. I don't believe he's dead. I believe he's still walking somewhere. That's for me. You can take that home with you. Said, when the 10 heard it, they were indignant at the two brothers. But Jesus called to them and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for the ransom of many. Okay, so there's a couple parts here. He talks about the Gentiles, the Pharisees. He said they lorded over them. They're obsessed with honor. So you have to think about where John and James are coming at. They're like, is this from a seat of honor? Is this from a seat of pride? Where is this from? Because the Gentiles here, they say they lord it over them. This is something that they think about all the time. It's all about honor. Where will I sit? Jesus tells them not to worry about that because you are here to be a servant just as I have. The first of you must be a slave. He said, whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. He's telling them, you are to serve. So you're not here to be served. If you are to be great, you are not to be honorable and be served by a servant or a slave. And if you are to be first, you are to be a slave. So just as much servitude tenfold. And he says, even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for the ransom of many. What's a ransom? Great answer, let me tell you. A ransom is something that someone would pay to get somebody out of prison in these times. You would pay for their head. So he says, of many, that's another thing. He would die for the ransom for many. It doesn't say all, but there's a reason for that, because he knows that he will not be accepted by all. As many as who would choose to serve him would have their ransom bought. For those who choose to accept him, they would have their ransom bought. So that's why he says it will be for many, not for all, but for many. So then we get to the last part of this. I didn't even need my notes today. He said, Jesus heals the two blind men. He said, as they went out of Jericho, a great crowd followed them. And behold, there were two blind men sitting by the roadside. And when they had heard that Jesus was passing by, they cried out, Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David. These men are blind. Blind. Can't see. But they cried out. Said, Lord, have mercy on us. How do you know? Faith. The feeling of that presence. Said, Lord, have mercy on us. But the crowd rebuked them, telling them to be silent. But they cried out more. Said, Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David. Going further. Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David. I know exactly who you are. And stopping, Jesus called them and said, what do you want me to do for you? They said to him, Lord, let our eyes be opened. And Jesus, in pity, touched their eyes, and immediately they recovered their sight and followed him. So I got a funny little story here about reaching out. I heard this one today. I thought it was a little fitting. It might be a little off kilter from the message, but having the faith to reach out and grab what you know would help you, letting nothing stop you. So there is a man in Louisiana. Okay? It's flood season, hurricane season. The water's rising. So he's standing on his porch, letting the water get under the porch. Because he knows the Lord will provide for him. Well, a boat rolls by. Says, the flood's coming. Get in. We're going to get out of here. Says, I'm not worried about it. The Lord will provide. Man of the boat says, okay. He takes off. A couple hours later, the flood water's coming up. He's like, I got to go get on the second story balcony. So he crawls up, gets on the second story. A rescue boat comes by. Big boat. Bunch of people on board. Holding a life preserver to say, get on the boat. Let's get out of here. This water's coming. He says, the Lord will provide. No problem. It's your grave. They get up, they leave. He's still sitting there. A couple hours later, the water comes up. It's all the way to the roof. He says, all right, I'm going to crawl on the roof. Got nowhere left to go, no boats in sight. But here comes a helicopter with a hanging basket. Call down from the intercom, said, get in the basket. Let's get you out of here. That water is coming. Said, the Lord will provide. I'm not worried about it. Okay? They leave. Needless to say, water comes up another few feet, rushes him off the roof, and he ends up drowning. Well, he meets the Lord in heaven. Says, God, I thought you were going to provide. Lord says to him, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. Was that not good enough? So the moral is you have, just like these people who are sitting here, the 2 blind men. If you know that help is there, they felt it in their hearts that help was there. If they would have sat there and just thought, well, the Lord's going to provide. I don't have to worry about it. Do you think their sight would have been healed? All they had to do was scream over the crowd to get to Jesus. Because they believed wholeheartedly that if Jesus could get to him, he would heal him. And they did. But if they would have sat there with that same thought, no, the Lord will provide. My sight will be healed. Probably wouldn't have happened. The same way you have to think about if you are in a struggle, You have to be able to recognize what hand is coming out to you to help you.
Yeah, some people think they pray that night that something imaginably just going to happen. And they get mad and say, "Oh, he's not listening to me."
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
And he's like, "I prayed tonight." I went, "You gotta
You gotta give it some time. Oh my gosh.
I said, "I waited 15 years for my life to be perfect again.
Oh my
I waited
gosh.
a long time just to get where I am now."
I'm not saying that God can't act right now.
No,
You
I'm
pray
not saying
something-
that either. I'm just saying people like expect him.
After not praying about it for a very long time, this guy says, "I'm praying and crying my eyes out right now. Why isn't he responding to me immediately?"
Like he thought immediately, and then when we said that it's not going to happen immediately, like right at this point,
Maybe he's just making you go.
He says,
It's because it's still in his hands. That's the difference. If you can disciple, that's the one thing that I would put out there. If you're expecting, why isn't he listening to me? Why isn't this happening right now?
because
Why
he has
aren't you
millions
listening
of
to
other people.
It's because you're holding your struggle still. If you weren't holding your struggle and you had full faith that God could take care of this, whatever the situation may be, that God could take care of it would be taken care of in his time. But you would be at peace because you know it's taken care of.
Instead of constantly thinking about the problem and like holding on to
And
it.
not fixing it.
It's not in God's hands at that point. If you refuse to let it go, it'll never get fixed. Any questions about tonight?
I can add to that a little bit, like that whole, when people ask, why am I going through this and why aren't things changing and all that. In my personal experience, when I prayed for things to change, I found that I generally didn't get change until I made peace with where I was, that God was going to meet me where I was. And when I found that peace, then things started to change. But another story, when people ask about why am I going through this, or why do bad things happen and all that. One of the youth pastor years ago was preaching and brought up, I thought it was really neat. He used the story of Joshua. His brothers threw him in a pit to get rid of him. They wanted to kill him or whatever, but they ended up throwing him in a pit. Well, you go back, I don't know, how many hundreds of years before Joshua was Abraham and Sarah? Anybody know? It was a long time. But anyway,
I think there was like 600 between Abraham and Jesus.
Well, there's at least 4 books worth, so.
yeah. But anyway,
That's one way to put it.
Abraham ended up having a child with Hagar,
Oh, yeah.
right? And had Ishmael. And it's like, well, that wasn't the way God wanted it done, and this and that and the other. And it seems like a bad story in the Bible because Abraham didn't do what God said, and things didn't go the way that they were supposed to go. And Ishmael ended up getting, kind of kicked out into the wilderness and all that. Well, it said that he was going to become a great nation, and he did. And there was the Ishmaelites. And if you fast forward these hundreds of years to Joshua, who got Joshua out of the pit? It was the Ishmaelites. So hundreds of years later, now you know why Abraham God didn't give him a child right away. He's praying for a child. God didn't give him a child right away. And you think, well, this isn't God's plan, when actually it really was. But you just didn't find out till hundreds of years later.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be going through something and you might not understand why, and you might not find out why for another 50 years, or you might not ever find out why. But your story is going to impact somebody that might impact somebody who knows when to bring them to Jesus. And that's why sometimes we get left where we're at. That's why Abraham got left where he was, questioning, wondering why.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of neat. I've never heard it quite put that way before, and I thought it was kind
So I
of
think
neat.
you've told me that one time.
I might have.
It was like way earlier in the study of Matthew.
Yeah, it might have been.
All right. Anybody else? Any questions? Nothing at all.
I was gonna ask something earlier about like Jesus's like brutal death, because we watched The Chosen once, and that was the first time I've ever seen anything like that.
It was
It
not
was-
The Chosen.
Was it The Chosen?
It
What
was
was
the
it?
Passion.
The Passion.
Of Christ.
That one, and it was like brutal.
Mhm.
If they knew that he was gonna, or he kept saying that he was gonna resurrect 3 days later, why did they still kill him? Why?
Because they didn't believe him.
Because the Romans.
Or do you
were-
think they were just scared that?
It was all a mockery. That's why they gave him a crown and called him the King of Jews. It was a mockery. They believed he was like some kind of prophet. Granted, he is, I am, but they believed at that point he was a nonsense magic user,
Because weren't they all like Protestant or something like that?
something like that.
Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
I guess it was another like put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. We don't believe you, so we're going to kill you anyways. Granted, that was the goal from the very beginning with Jesus, was to kill him. Joke's on them. It was his plan the whole time too. But yeah, any prayer requests this week?
The friend that we were just talking about.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there is too.
Got anything this week, Rain?